Hello, it's good to see you here again. There's a small story in the Bible that many people skip over. It's not loud, there's no crowd watching, but in the unseen realm, something intense was happening. A spiritual battle. A clash between a messenger from God and a dark power known as the Prince of Persia. Picture this. You're standing in a dim space. Suddenly, a cold chill runs down your spine. Something unseen is blocking every step you take. For 21 days, the angel carrying God's message was held back. So fierce that heaven had to send Michael, the Archangel himself, to break through. Here's what gets me thinking. This didn't happen during a war between nations. It didn't start with armies. It started with one man, alone, on his knees, praying. Just one prayer, and the whole spiritual realm began to shake. Makes you wonder, what if your quiet prayer in your quiet room is louder in heaven than you think? Have you ever prayed for something deeply important, but all you got back was silence? No sign, no hint, just silence, stretching longer than you expected. Daniel knew that feeling. He didn't just pray, he fasted. He gave up comfort to show how serious his request was. Imagine him sitting alone in a small room. The sunlight fades through the window. And when night falls, the silence feels even heavier. He must have wondered, is God ignoring me? One day passed, then 2, then 3 full weeks. I wonder, what was going through his mind during that time? Did he think he was the problem? Did he ask himself, did I do something wrong? Maybe God doesn't want to answer me this time. We do that too, don't we? When things stay quiet, we blame ourselves. Or we give up too soon. But Daniel didn't walk away. Even when nothing seemed to change, he kept praying. Every single day. And here's the part he didn't know. God had already heard him. From day one. It wasn't rejection. And it wasn't neglect. Something else was happening behind the silence. A battle was unfolding. Right in the unseen realm. Could the same be true for you? What if you gave up one day before your answer was about to break through? There was something Daniel couldn't see. While he kept praying on earth, a struggle was happening in a realm he couldn't reach. The angel sent to him was blocked. Not by people, not by politics, but by a real spiritual force. They called it the Prince of Persia. Not a human ruler, not a Persian official, but a being assigned to control the spiritual atmosphere of an entire empire. Strong enough to hold back an angel for 21 days. Have you ever wondered, what if the delay in your life isn't from God, but from a fight you don't even see? What struck me was this. Without the angel's explanation, Daniel would never know what was going on. He would have thought, God just didn't answer. But no, every word Daniel prayed was shaking something above. Heaven heard, and hell responded. We often judge prayer by feelings. But in Daniel's case, feelings told him nothing. On day 21, Michael came, not to comfort, to confront. The Archangel stepped in, not with soft words, but with force to break through the barrier. Have you ever thought, your quiet prayer could be strong enough to pull the highest ranks of heaven into action? I picture the air during that battle. Thick, heavy, like trying to breathe through fog. Maybe that's what our silence feels like sometimes. We pray and hear nothing. But somewhere above, something is trying to keep the answer from getting through. So maybe the real question isn't, should I keep praying? It's, can I hold on until heaven breaks through? Daniel had no idea what was happening above him. No sign, no message. Each day felt the same, like the sky was sealed shut. If it were you, would you keep going? When nothing shifts, when every prayer seems to fall flat. Daniel didn't hear swords clashing in the spirit realm. He didn't see the angel being blocked in the air. But his prayers were stirring that very battle. His words weren't ignored. They were resisted, not by men, but by invisible powers. I remember a time I prayed for direction. I asked every day for clarity, but the silence felt endless. After a week, I almost gave up. But what if the answer was only one day away? Have you ever walked away, thinking nothing was happening, when in fact you were just one step from breakthrough? Daniel stayed. He sat through the silence. Light from a small oil lamp flickered across the room. Smoke lingered in the air, soaking into his robe. He didn't know what was delayed, or that his words were shaking something bigger than he could imagine. But he didn't stop. Here's what I've learned. The prayers that carry weight are the ones we keep saying in silence, not when we feel something, but when we don't and still don't quit. When you hear the name Prince of Persia, you might picture a king, a general, or a character from ancient history. But this prince wasn't human, and it wasn't just a symbol. It was real, an invisible force, assigned to control the spiritual atmosphere of an empire, not with swords, but with influence. It stirred up hearts, twisted decisions, and carved out space for darkness in places of power. Have you ever wondered, behind a nation's policies or sudden chaos, is there something unseen at work? What shocked me most was that this force held back an angel for 3 full weeks. Not because the angel was weak, but because the opposition was organized, calculated, and relentless. Michael, the Archangel, had to intervene. If he hadn't, Daniel might still be waiting, never knowing why. I remember a friend who once told me, "I feel blocked spiritually, like something's pressing down on me every time I try to pray." Back then, I just told him to read the Bible more. Now, I wonder, maybe the walls we hit aren't always from inside us. Maybe something out there is building them. The light in this story isn't bright. It's dim, like sunlight filtered through thick fog. Only enough to see a few steps ahead. But that's all Daniel needed. Not all battles come with swords. Some come with pressure, with silence, with pushback you can't explain. When the angel told Daniel, "After this, I must fight the Prince of Greece," everything suddenly got bigger, much bigger. It wasn't just Persia. It wasn't just one empire. Every kingdom, every rising power seemed to have its own spiritual force behind it, a real entity, not speaking through laws or politics, but shaping thoughts, bending will, and whispering into decisions. Have you ever looked at a long war, a brutal regime, or a sudden crisis, and thought, this feels deeper than politics? That's the question this story pushes on us. Prince of Persia, Prince of Greece. It hints at a larger map, one where invisible rulers cover regions, waiting for moments to influence the course of history. I used to think everything on the news came from economics, greed, or power. But now I wonder, What if leaders are making choices under pressure they can't name? What if today's princes still pull the strings? Quietly, constantly. Daniel didn't see that whole picture. He just prayed. And when he did, a war broke out. He moved something in the unseen realm. The temperature in the room didn't change. But when Daniel heard about the Prince of Greece, I imagine the air felt colder, not because of the weather, but because he realized this fight wasn't just his, it was the world's. There's something we often miss. Most of what we see is just the surface. News, politics, emotions. We think it's all coming from people. But what if there's more underneath? Daniel didn't protest. He didn't gather crowds. He didn't write petitions. He prayed. And that prayer, it shook the heavens. One angel got blocked. Then a higher-ranking angel, Michael, was sent. All because of a man kneeling alone. Is there something you've called small that might have more weight than you think? I had a friend who argued about politics online for hours. He knew all the facts. But when I asked if he ever prayed about those issues, he laughed. That stuck with me. Maybe we've been fighting on the wrong battlefield. The light in Daniel's room wasn't from a stage. It wasn't dramatic. It was warm, quiet, from a small oil lamp burning into the night. His head was bowed. His voice was low. Nobody knew, but heaven did. And so did hell. Where are you fighting? In meetings? In debates? On social media? Or in the quiet when no one's watching? Daniel didn't win because he shouted loud. He won because he stayed standing, even in silence. Daniel prayed, and heaven moved. He didn't hear swords clashing. He didn't see angels fighting. But his quiet words shook the unseen world. Even when the silence lasted for 21 days, he didn't stop. He stayed where it mattered, on his knees. One man, one prayer. The whole battle in the spiritual realm. The world says strength is loud, but sometimes heaven listens best to the quiet. If you want to go deeper into how Michael shows up at key turning points in the Bible, watch the next video, when Michael confronts Satan, Jude, and Revelation. You'll understand why, when Michael arrives, everything shifts. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt like you were fighting the wrong battle? And what helped you realize